That ball is stroked. Gone! Oh my goodness, on a frozen rope. Throw in there on one hop. Out! Oh, he hosed him. Hop steps, great dump off and a two-hand jam. Welcome back for episode 26 of White Noise Sports with Tanner White. I'm officially making this at least mostly Fantasy Football Friday number 2. That was fun to try out last week, and I think I'm going to go back to it intermittently. This was such an awesome week 1 of the NFL regular season. I already went over the Ravens and Chiefs season opener from last Thursday, and that set the scene for every other sick game we got the whole rest of the week. Other things that we hit on last week, the holdouts for the 49ers, Trent Williams and Brandon Ayuk finally ended. Both guys played, definitely not at their absolute best, but they were out there. Now, I'm going to take a little page from Chris Berman's book with the fastest 3 minutes, although I'm going to go a little bit slower. I don't have any real time limit besides your attention spans, I suppose. For those of you that aren't familiar with Chris Berman, he's an ESPN anchor, a 45-year veteran. He gets a segment during every Monday Night Football game called the fastest 3 minutes. He recaps every game with some fun quips and a couple of key stats or performers from the game, talking over a 3-minute little highlight package behind him. Let's get into it. Number one thing I gotta say is that the kickers went absolutely nuts this week across the entire league. They set a record for the most made field goals from 50-plus yards in NFL history, 21 total out of 23 tries. The only 2 guys who missed were Justin Tucker, who's still the greatest kicker that's ever lived. He'll be just fine. And the Commanders' Cade York. We are officially in the year of the kicker. I did not have that on the bingo board, but that should be fun this year. Friday night was in Brazil with the Eagles and Packers. There was lots of complaints on both sides about the field conditions. Everyone survived, but Jordan Love, the Packers quarterback, comes away with an MCL injury. The word is it's not a tear and he's not going on injured reserve, but this is really not a good time for that at all. The Packers had to call on Malik Willis from Tennessee to try and keep him afloat. Time will tell, but that doesn't bode well that whole time Love is out. Saquon Barkley went for 3 total touchdowns in his Eagles debut. Jalen Hurts turned the ball over 3 times as well. That was not so hot. And the Packers' Jaden Reed had a career-high 138 yards and a touchdown. The Eagles hold on after Malik Willis takes a sack on a Hail Mary try, and that game ended up 34-29. The 1 p.m. games on Sunday gave us a ton of drama. That was fun. Justin Fields started over Russell Wilson for the Steelers against the Falcons. Kirk Cousins honestly looked like a shell of his former self. He made a lot of people speculate that he might be hiding some sort of injury. The Steelers only scored 6 field goals, which is such a Steelers thing to do, and they still won 18-10. The Bills let Josh Allen play Superman again versus the Cardinals. He got sack-fumbled on their very first offensive drive, and then all he did after that was put up 2 rushing and 2 passing touchdowns like he always does. The Cardinals got the first kickoff return touchdown of the dynamic kickoff era, 96 yards from their backup running back, DJ Dallas, but they still came up short on their final drive, 34-28 Bills in that one. Moving over to the Patriots and Bengals, Joe Burrow did that thing that he does where he plays like one of the worst quarterbacks in the league for the month of September. Not sure why he continues to do that every year. New England is not pretty to watch in any way, but they did beat up Burrow pretty badly. The Bengals' offensive line is still not good enough. And the Patriots' run game went for 170 yards, and they won 16-10 in an ugly one. Texans at the Colts. Fun back-and-forth game with 2 of the brightest young star QBs in the league, really. The Texans' new starting running back, Joe Mixon, rushed 30 times for 159 yards, leading the league in Week 1 and added a touchdown. Both passing games made some big chunk plays. The other new Texan, Stephon Diggs, also had 2 touchdowns through the air. And the Texans won with your average everyday score of 29-27, naturally. The Saints absolutely decimated the Panthers. That game was 47-10. Bryce Young, let me be clear on this. He's still one of the worst quarterbacks in the league, and he is not going to take a big step forward this year. He does have the worst team around him by far, and that doesn't help. But boy, his accuracy, decision-making, all the things that you'd like to see at least ticking up, not there. The Saints are still frauds, but they beat up on somebody like this every year for some reason, just putting up a huge number like that. The Vikings throttled the Giants 28-6. Daniel Jones, the Giants starting quarterback, is making $40 million a year. He was able to put up 2 field goals and threw 2 interceptions for that offense. Perfectly balanced, as all things should be. Chargers over the Raiders 22-10. This was all about the Chargers' new starting running back, J.K. Dobbins. 10 carries for 135, and you know Jim Harbaugh is absolutely licking his lips over that. And the Raiders' offense, not a lot of punch. Sunday Night Football, the Lions and the Rams gave us the only overtime game of the week. The Rams' rookie receiver phenom from last year, Puka Nacua, had to come out with a knee injury before the half, and he takes with him all the sunshine and roses. Cooper Kupp turned back into the guy that should have won MVP a couple of years ago, and he caught 14 balls on 21 targets. The Rams' other rookie sensation from last year, running back Kyren Williams, he was the workhorse with 21 total touches, but for only 54 total yards. The Lions' Jamison Williams caught 5 balls for a career-high 121 yards and a touchdown, and if you haven't heard about his speed, he can absolutely fly. In overtime, the Lions won the coin toss, and they drove it all the way down the field, 70 yards for the touchdown. Maybe the most imposing offensive line and run game in the league between David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs. The way that those guys complement each other, spectacular, and that offensive line, scary. Lions 26-20 in overtime there. There was the Cowboys and Browns. That ended up closer than you thought it might be, as the Cowboys defense was absolutely embarrassing Deshaun Watson through 3 quarters plus. That was Tom Brady's broadcast debut, taking over Greg Olson's job as the color commentator. And truly, I thought he struggled a little bit. Believe it or not, Tom has nerves, and he is a human being. When it comes to Tom's knowledge of football, though, just breaking down X's and O's, he's going to do as well as anybody as soon as he gets settled in, as soon as he learns to flow a little bit better, feel out the game, and get a little bit better rapport with your play-by-play guy. The Cowboys defense and Brandon Aubrey at kicker both went off. We'll get a little bit more into that with my fantasy football discussion coming up because I absolutely love all of those. Just a couple of other games to mention. You had the Broncos' Bo Nix making his first career start. Not terrible against the Seahawks, but they lost 26-20. Then you had Baker Mayfield and the Bucs dropping a 37 bomb on the Washington Commanders. They were the second highest scoring team in the league this week. And Baker with 4 touchdown passes, he was the only guy in the league to manage that. Scoring was down around the league a little bit this week, except for Tampa. Final game of the week, though, was the Jets and 49ers from Monday night. Ugly game for 40-year-old Aaron Rodgers. Beautiful game, though, for Jordan Mason, the running back making his first career start with Christian McCaffrey sitting out. The word is McCaffrey's still managing a calf injury from training camp and some Achilles tendonitis, which is probably, when you think about his kind of usage, it's probably been with him since high school. The 49ers dominated up front on offense and defense, just like they're supposed to do. Jordan Mason carried 28 times for 147 yards and a touchdown. And this was also the least time of possession Aaron Rodgers has ever had in a game in 20 years. It was about 21 minutes to 39 for the Niners. The Jets picked up 1 garbage time touchdown from Tyrod Taylor, their backup quarterback, to Allen Lazard. They cut it to 32-19, but this game was never really close. They got outclassed by what should be probably, and how often do we say this about the Niners, the best team in the NFL. Now, I waited until Friday morning again to cover the Thursday night game because I had this one circled on the calendar. I fully believed in Josh Allen and Tua to give us a show and that there would be a ton of points scored. This does bleed into week 2, of course, with the Thursday night, but I think it's worth it as long as the quality of the Thursday night matchups are good. I will absolutely not be doing this for week 3 with the Patriots and Jets. I just want to clarify. Josh Allen picked up a left hand injury on one of his touchdown runs from the Cardinals game on Sunday, which led to some people thinking it could affect him or even keep him out of the lineup for Thursday night. They clearly don't know who they're dealing with. I am convinced that this is Josh Allen's year to win MVP, like I have been several other years, and it hasn't happened yet. I just think if he stays healthy for 17 games, and if he keeps bringing that much value as a runner and a passer, he could run away with it. Now, of course, there was the outcome of the Thursday night game to think about. Obviously, the Bills absolutely throttled the Dolphins there, 31-10, and Josh Allen had to do essentially nothing, was never really challenged in that game. James Cook went for 3 total touchdowns, all in the first half. The huge takeaway, though, Tua suffering another concussion. It's 3 documented at least, all really severe in 2 years. Mike McDaniel giving them the little kiss on the forehead at the end kind of told you everything you need to know. His wife and kids came to see him in the locker room. He has got to sincerely think about hanging it up. I hate to say that. 26 years old, talented quarterback in so many ways. Everyone loves him, an awesome person, and he's just got to choose life over football likely at this point. Knowing his attitude, knowing how much he loves the game, I don't necessarily expect Tua to do this, but I think it would be the right choice, and you've got to have people in your corner probably prompting you that way, though I can't say it'll happen or not. Now, finally, for the all-important fantasy football score reveals from my first week. I did win in both leagues. I scored 134.3 and 150.3 with some pretty big margins of victory in each. I was able to grab Jordan Mason on waivers right before the Monday night game, and he was fantastic. I absolutely am holding on to him until McCaffrey is fully back. My MVPs were arguably the kicker and defense in both. I was so certain about the Cowboys in both of those spots that I took them way higher than they're normally drafted. Brandon Aubrey, the Cowboys kicker, had a 66-yard field goal, which he absolutely crushed, taken off the board by a delay of game, and he still scored 21 points. I think that's entirely a Mike McCarthy issue if you guys watched that game, and I hear that the special teams coordinator was complaining that the play clock wasn't reset. Well, if that's the case, your head coach has still got to be watching, and he's the only one who's able to call that timeout. After the 5-yard penalty, they were backed up to 71, and they decided to go with more of a Hail Mary look, which didn't work out. Brandon Aubrey could truly be on the way to being one of the best kickers of all time, I think. His leg is nonsensical. Then the Cowboys defense also throttled the Browns, and they scored the first punt return touchdown of the year. Now, my lineups top to bottom go like this. So for one, I have Joe Burrow, Jonathan Taylor, Jordan Mason for now, although that'll obviously be McCaffrey when he's back, Garrett Wilson, Devontae Adams, Evan Ingram, Joe Mixon, and then the Cowboys at the bottom with Brandon Aubrey and the Dallas defense. For the other, Josh Allen, Bijan Robinson, Kyren Williams, Michael Pittman, Cooper Kupp, Evan Ingram again, Calvin Ridley, and again, Brandon Aubrey and the Dallas defense. I just kind of like to be able to remember who I'm rooting for sometimes, you know? Besides the Lions, these lineups are my favorite teams right now, so don't ask me about bandwagoning. Especially if these guys keep putting up numbers and being reliable, I'd love to play these lineups almost every single week. Other things I'm thrilled about from week 1 of the fantasy season, I somehow got Chris Olave, the Saints' #1 receiver, on waivers in one league. That's pretty sick. I only had a couple of big disappointments throughout both lineups, unsurprisingly with the scores. Of course, Evan Ingram with the Jags. He was tight end 2 last year. I know a lot of people don't realize this, but he outscored Travis Kelce, George Kittle, Mark Andrews, all the established best tight ends in the game. He was only second to Sam Laporta with the Lions. Last year, he caught 114 balls on over 140 targets. Look, he still had better numbers than some other teams' #1 receivers. He had one single catch on Sunday for 5 yards, targeted 4 times against the Dolphins. I was able to stash the Vikings tight end TJ Hawkinson on IR in both leagues. He's still not able to play. He's on that PUP list. He's an eventual backup plan, but that won't pay off for a while. I believe their bye week is week 6, and they're talking about maybe Hawkinson could come back after that, but tough to say. Calvin Ridley also let me down a little bit. He had 3 catches for 50 yards, but the Titans are a tragedy. They gave up 2 defensive touchdowns to the absolutely hapless Chicago Bears, and they choked a 2-touchdown lead. The rumor this whole offseason was the Titans were going to switch up their scheme and spread out the offense, and they were going to throw it all over the place with all these 3 and 4 wide receiver sets. That was absolutely wrong. None of that happened. They ended up trying to make Tony Pollard look like Derrick Henry, and I hate to say it, he didn't do a terrible job. It wasn't super efficient, it wasn't explosive from Pollard like he normally is, but he grinded out a lot of hard yards and at least gave them a chance. Will Levis is not the guy at quarterback, and he never has been. I've said that at least 3 or 4 times now. And that's going to hold back every one of their other receiving options, like DeAndre Hopkins as well. Do we know anything about the rest of the fantasy season yet from what we saw in week 1? Look, guys, you take the evidence and decide for yourself. I'm not certain. I do love my lineups, but time will always tell. And that's about all for episode 26 of White Noise Sports with Tanner White. Second Fantasy Friday in the books, and a bit quicker of an episode this afternoon. I might even do a bit less of the game recap stuff and get more into the weeds with the nerdy fantasy stuff throughout the year. My Tigers are still clinging to life in the AL wildcard race, so I'm forced to keep watching them every night. They just still need the Twins and or the Royals to lose some games because the Tigers have been one of the best teams in the second half. That's how they've stuck around. Lots more fun things are coming. I might hop back into some of the WNBA stuff. Still pondering college football, but I don't think that's super imminent, unfortunately. However, I do get to announce a lot of high school and college football right now, so that's awesome. Remember, you can always feel free to hit me on my socials if you have an idea for me. Instagram and TikTok at The Voice of Tanner. Connect on LinkedIn. And, of course, leave a like, comment, and share. This has been episode 26 of White Noise Sports with Tanner White. Thanks for joining me.
And that ball is stroked. Gone! Oh, my goodness, on a frozen rope.
Throw in there on one hop. Out! Oh, he hosed him.
Hop steps, great dump off, and a two-hand jam.